Well, guys, another week, another Indianapolis Colts loss. Here's the deal, guys. So before we kind of get into this game, I will say, based off of how the comments below, how people respond in the comments down below, that will tell you whether or not they are a casual or not, so you can clearly identify them. But without further ado, let's get into it. All right, we are back. What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice here, guys. Cody and Derek back for another one, guys. Yeah, guys, like I said, the Indianapolis Colts lost today at home to the Detroit Lions by a score of 24-6. Derek, I know you and I are both doing the live stream on this game. A very frustrating game in a lot of ways for the Indianapolis Colts because Colts were in this game for a good large majority of this game. The Colts, were in this a lot. They had a lot of opportunities, and they just kept getting in their own way in a lot of different ways, and very frustrating because you held Detroit to only 24 points in this game. You had multiple opportunities, but you just couldn't get it done, couldn't get anything going, and every time you did start to get something going, you got in your own way, and it was just very, very frustrating to say the least. So we're going to jump into that in just a moment. But before we do that, just want to remind you guys this episode is presented by Prize Picks. Be sure to download the app today and use the code JUICE to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. All right, Derek, let's dive into this game because there's a lot to talk about. And there's a lot of, when you look at the box score, it may not tell you the full story. There's going to be some stuff that will tell you the full story of this game, but there's definitely going to be some stuff that also doesn't tell you the full story of this game. So as you and I watched it for 60-plus minutes, Derek, we saw everything, and we understand kind of how this game went for the Indianapolis Colts. So I'll let you take it away, man. What did you see from this game? A very frustrating game, like I mentioned, but what were your takeaways?
Yeah, well, you just let me know when you want me to break this down because anyone that doesn't know, I have a sheet of like both sides almost completely full of plays that resulted in why the Indianapolis Colts offense looked so bad today. And I may be missing a play or two, maybe. But that just goes to show you that, again, the self-inflicted wounds, and that's basically what this was today, Cody. Yes, the refs also made a lot of penalties that weren't there and also were favoriting the Detroit Lions in the penalty department. Again, the Detroit Lions had 2 penalties before the final 6 minutes of the game in which they were up by 3 scores at that point already. And one of those 2 penalties that they did have in the moments where it actually mattered, it was a taunting penalty for Gibbs. So it didn't even negate a touchdown. It only just made it to where they had to kick an extra point 15 yards further, which is not even a difficult thing for their kicker. So it was basically from up until the 6-minute mark of the fourth quarter, was basically 1 penalty for the Detroit Lions versus, I think it was at least 8 for the Indianapolis Colts. At least. It might have been 10 at that point. I'm not sure. But it was self-inflicted wounds and lack of execution today, Cody. I mean, we knew going into this game that the Detroit Lions were probably the better team, and we knew that they had a really great chance of winning this game. And so did everyone else. But my God, did we not expect the Indianapolis Colts to look as bad as they did, to look as undisciplined and unprepared and just have that much of a lack of execution in so many things, especially on the offense. Defensive-wise, yeah, it wasn't a great performance. But the defense did only give up 24 points. And in regards to how many points the Detroit Lions have scored this year, Cody, I think they average over 30 points a game. So the fact that you only allowed them to score 24 gives you an idea of just how much better the defense played in regards to the offense. But yeah, it was a bad performance, dude.
Yeah, 100%. And to your point, Detroit scored 33.6 points in 2024 average. So, I mean, yeah, the Colts held them well below their average in this game. And, yeah, like you said, the defense was not perfect. They definitely struggled. They looked like a middle school team at times trying to tackle. They were terrible on third down and medium to long today, again, and just terrible on third down in general. And they had a lot of issues, don't get me wrong. But I mean, this is a game where the Indianapolis Colts, like, they gave you a chance on defense. As much as the defense had their issues, they couldn't tackle for good large majorities of this game. They couldn't cover on third and longs in the middle of the field. It was wide open all day. The Indianapolis Colts linebackers are probably the worst unit in terms of coverage. I think they're just so bad. That middle of the field was just wide open all day long. And it was very bad. It was very poor by this unit, and it was very frustrating because it wasn't even these pass plays on some of those third downs. It was straight up running down the middle, and Detroit would need 6 or 7. They'd get 12. Yes. It was that sort of stuff that was very infuriating. But the Colts were able to get to Detroit very much today. They were able to get after Jared Goff a lot in this game, which I definitely think was a positive thing for them. When you look at it, the Colts were able to, a lot of guys, got pressure, got sacks on Jared Goff. I know at one point, Derek, it was something like, 17 pressures or something like that?
I think it was 18 in total, yeah.
It was 18 in total. So, yeah, I mean, they were getting after Jared Goff all day long. You had multiple guys who got sacks in this game, which is definitely a great thing. You only ended up actually with 3 sacks, but 3 sacks and 18 pressures. I mean, you'll take that from, your defensive line who, again, Derek, Detroit has one of the best offensive lines in football. So you will take that from your defensive line. Again, there were times where Jared Goff had a lot of time to throw, but your defense did, I think, enough in this game in terms of getting after him to make him uncomfortable enough where, yeah, okay, he was pretty efficient. I mean, Jared Goff's been pretty efficient all year long. But again, Derek, he had no touchdowns in this game. He got sacked 3 times. And the offense for Detroit, yeah, while it had its moments, they only had 24 points. And I think the Colts did as good of a job as they could at times, but also had some really stupid moments as well.
Yes.
But all in all, you'll take 24 points allowed for a team that's averaging over 30.
Yes.
So for me, I'm like, I don't blame the defense in this one, even though they weren't, they had their own blame to go around. I mean, the defense was, again, not the issue for this team.
Not the biggest one for sure.
Not the biggest issue, yeah. 100%. But when talking about the offense, Derek, you mentioned it, just a lot of self-inflicted penalties. I mean, I know I'll let you get to your sheet in a second, but here's what I'll say right off the top. You have to have a right guard conversation because Dalton Tucker is the worst right guard in football. And then I'll also say you need to draft not one, but multiple tight ends this year because your tight end group is the worst tight end group in the NFL. And I don't think I'm exaggerating.
The tight end group did not have a single catch today, Cody.
They have 26 catches on the entire season. That's insane.
Versus, to give you guys perspective of that, obviously this is like many years ago with a different regime and a different quarterback and different people. But in 2018, I think Joel Erickson brought this up.
Yeah.
In 2018, when Eric Ebron was there with Andrew Luck in that group, they had 22 touchdowns that year. 22 touchdowns. The tight end group this year for the Colts has 26 catches. Not touchdowns, catches. So they have 4 more catches on the year than touchdowns that were scored by the tight end group just 6 years ago for this Colts team. It goes to show you just how, I mean, again, we have a quarterback that also doesn't get after the tight ends very well this year, no doubt. This tight end group is also, it's bad. It's bad. I don't want to hear anyone make any excuse for it. They're bad. They're bad. So if you're just going to pay tight ends to block, that's fine, but just don't expect. Then Indianapolis needs to go and get another big weapon to be out on the field at almost all times. Because if you're going to only get production from your wide receivers, then that's just not it.
It's very clear that tight end has to be the number one priority on the offense this next year, this offseason. It has to be. Because everything else in this game, well, not everything, but, the other weapons, I suppose, all the wide receivers, I thought looked pretty good today. I mean, I thought they did their job for the majority of the part. They weren't perfect, But I didn't feel like the wide receivers were the issue. But the tight end has consistently been an issue this year, where, like you pointed out the stat, like you only had 26 catches in, 12 games? That's terrible. That's insane. So, yeah, you need an alpha. I mean, no doubt, Derek. I know, I wasn't as big of a proponent of tight end being in need as much, but I understand fully now why you were in on Brock Bowers and other people were in on Brock Bowers, because you imagine what he would be for this offense right now. It'd be crazy.
Indy needs to draft 2 tight ends in this draft. They need to draft Tyler Warren in the first round, Harold Fannin Jr. in the second.
They got to go back, 2012, where they went tight end round 2 and 3, but do round 1 and 2.
Yeah, just do that again.
Why not?
Need it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Derek, pull up your stats, because when you're looking at this offense, I mean, box score will tell you one thing, but plays, true things that were happening in the game, the context of it, it matters. So go ahead, man, because there's going to be a lot of people who look at the box score, say a lot of ridiculous things, that they clearly didn't watch a snap of this game, but we did. We watched every single snap of this game. So, Derek, go ahead. I'm going to let you just take the lead with this, because we were counting it on stream, because it was actually insane.
Oh, yeah. So, again, I'm pretty sure I've gotten it close to the amount to what actually happened. So, this is just covering like a bunch of different points as well, adding to it for what happened with this. So, this is like the self-inflicted wounds that happened for the Indianapolis Colts. So, I'm going to try to get it in order. I'm not 100% accurate on it, but it's close. First drive, Nelson had a penalty on a 3rd and 1 that resulted in the Colts having to be 3rd and 6 rather than a 4th and 1 at the 4-yard line, which probably the Colts would have gone for it probably at 4th and 1, and you feel pretty good about your chances of getting a 4th and 1 with Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor out there. So that penalty put you back from the start. Quentin Nelson. Oh, who's also, by the way, had the worst game of his entire career today. Worst one. I think he had like 5 QB pressures, 3 QB hits. I mean, and multiple, I think he had like 3 or 4 penalties on himself alone. So, I mean, this was a bad game from the best offensive lineman on your unit. And that's your guy. That's your cornerstone piece. And he had the worst game of his entire career. That's the first one. Ogletree on the second drive cost you. He actually cost you on the second and third drive. Drew Ogletree had a hold on the second drive, which wiped out a 20-yard pass to Kylan Granson, one of the few catches that the tight ends made all game, Cody, and it got wiped out because another tight end couldn't block. And then the next drive after that, the drive stalled, by the way, because of that penalty. Drew Ogletree, the next drive, Indy gets all the way down to the red zone, drops a wide open 12-yard touchdown pass, wide open, hit him right in the hands. There's no doubt it was a touchdown. Dropped it, lost it for him. So there's that. The next drive after that, a 20-yard run by Jonathan Taylor was wiped out because of a hold on Dalton Tucker. So the best run that JT would have had all game, Cody, because he's, again, did not have a good game because there was nowhere to run. There was nowhere to run for Jonathan Taylor today. And what would have been his best run and would have been a instant drive mover got held back. Now, Indianapolis did move down the field anyway in spite of that, but that's not the point. The next drive after, Alec Pierce got called for an offensive pass interference on a pick that was egregious, to say the least. It should not have been called. But the problem I have here, Cody, is that when these players try to do this, because clearly Alec Pierce was trying to pick him, clearly. But if you don't want the officials to think you're picking them, quit standing straight up in the middle and doing this. Like, you're not making an attempt at a play. Get in the way of the player, but pretend that you're trying to catch a ball. Like, actually look like you're trying to make a football play rather than Oh no, I didn't pickle. Oh no, I didn't pick him. I didn't pick him. I'm just standing here with my hands up. I didn't do nothing. Like, bruh, we know you're trying. The refs know it. They see it. It's obvious. Quit making it obvious for them. Make it look as if you're not actually intending to do it. Sure, they might have still called it, but guess what? Maybe they would have thought it was a football play. And guess what? That wiped out a 30-yard pass to Josh Downs, which again stalled a drive, Cody. So that's 2 or 3 drives stalled because of plays that were there. And that's just one. That's just part of it. Ashton Doolin, the first drive after you get out of halftime, I'm pretty sure it was close to that. Anthony Richardson put a 30-yard pass attempt on Ashton Doolin just straight in his lap. Couldn't put his feet down. Couldn't put his feet down on the sideline, and it was as clear as day, and he ends up not being able to get it, and then that's a 30-yard pass wiped off the board because he couldn't put his feet down, and that's a drive that was stalled. And there was another one before half where Granson was not ready for a wide open pass. Literally, the Lions brought like 6 or 7 people. Granson is wide open and down the seam. Like, he's literally running with no one near him. Doesn't turn around, and by the time he turns around, the ball is zooming past his head. Because Anthony Richardson put it there, but Granson was not prepared for it. It would have been a 25-yard completion, at least. That one gets stalled because of that. There was also a hold on a 4th and 8 where Anthony Richardson avoided pressure and was able to get a ball to Josh Downs because of being able to scramble to his right. But because of the hold on Braden Smith, that didn't get taken. And now all of a sudden we had to punt that one instead when we were still only down by 1. So I think that is as far as like the actual plays that I can remember. But here's the other thing, Cody. So knowing all of that, and there's more to it though, Anthony Richardson was pressured on 56% of his dropbacks. More than half the time. So to put that into perspective of how bad that is, guys, the NFL average is 34% of the time there's a pressure on the quarterback. So 22% more of the time Anthony Richardson was under duress. And for a quarterback that is still trying to figure things out and is still trying to get used to the system that Shane Steichen is putting him in, they failed him. The offensive line failed him. They were terrible today. There was nothing the offensive line could have done. I'm quite positive that there's only about 1 or 2 other games this year, Cody, where a quarterback got pressured at a higher rate this year than that. So just to put that into perspective. Also, 10 plus penalties today. I'm pretty sure it was 10. It might have been 11, but 10 penalties for the Colts today. And that is also in reference to the 4 penalties. Like I said, the Lions had 2 of those penalties when the game was actually still there. Like after the game was already out of reach, it was a 3-score game. There was less than a half quarter left to go. The Lions had 2 penalties on them for 10 yards. So it wasn't a big deal to them. But it was a big deal for the Indianapolis Colts, who were getting penalized pretty much every drive, Cody, and it was just terrible. And to give a perspective too, if you add the penalty yardage minus the yardage that you lost because of certain plays like that, over 150 negated yards by this Colts offense because of penalties. 150! That would have put you over 400 yards for the game, Cody, had they not had those penalties. But that just goes to show you, and I didn't even mention the field possession. I mean, obviously, possession of where the Lions were, I think they averaged probably at like the 30-something, probably like the 36 or something, while the Indianapolis Colts, they were averaging inside their own 20. So, the defense, I mean, albeit the defense got a few stops, but when the offense is having to start their drives inside the 20 every single time. And on first downs, when you actually get a play that works and your offensive linemen are committing penalties that starts you back at 1st and 15 or 1st and 20, whatever it is, it's impossible. It's impossible as an offense to be able to do anything. We wouldn't even ask Patrick Mahomes to have to deal with that. Because he doesn't have to deal with that. Because the refs don't flag him that much and that offense that much. And his team is better. And yet we're going to blame Anthony Richardson because you had 150 negated yards of offense that he helped put together because the rest of his team failed him. Give me a break.
Well, the 2024 NFL season for the Indianapolis Colts is in full swing. And with that, wanted to share the sponsor of today's video, Prize Picks.
When it comes to Prize Picks, this is going to be a great way for you guys, especially, to check out some of the stuff that Prize Picks has.
You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You heard me right. Only 4 correct picks. You can win 100 times your money, guys, on Prize Picks. Be sure to sign up today and get $50 off instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed.
So if you're looking specifically for the Colts stuff, that's definitely something you guys should check out. But if you're looking for, like me, more NFL stuff, there's all sorts of stats and stuff that you can check out and make your picks. And there's definitely guys that are very consistent, like Jonathan Taylor against the Houston Texans, that you really feel like you can probably feel pretty good about overall, right? And there's some other ones where you're like, I don't know if I would take the over on that. I don't know if I would pick them to hit that margin, right? So, guys, be sure to go check out all that stuff on Prize Picks. It's only a couple examples. There's all the different odds that you could hope for when it comes to that for Prize Picks. So I encourage you guys to go check that out, but definitely excited for this season. And hopefully you guys will be following along with us and everything with Prize Picks and what they do.
So be sure to download the app today. Use the code JUICE to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code JUICE to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Like I said, guys, it's a great way to continue to stay in with week-to-week life of the NFL, specifically with your favorite team, the Indianapolis Colts. So be sure to do that. Be sure to check out Prize Picks. And remember, Prize Picks, run your game.
Needed that. But no, I think that is just the unfortunate part about it is the nature of the quarterback position. And it's not fair either way, where if you win, and if you're doing all this stuff, it's all on the quarterback. The quarterback gets all the praise. But if you have a game like this where literally your entire offense, outside of a few guys around you, are literally not doing their jobs. Like, there are 11 guys on the field. And if 7 of those guys or 6 of those guys aren't doing their job, it's going to ruin it for everybody. That's just the fact of it. So it's the ultimate team game for the better or for the worse. So when you're looking at the quarterback, again, Derek, he wasn't perfect. He definitely had some throws, some inerrant throws a little bit, especially in that second half. He had a couple where you're like, yeah, it wasn't great, or he threw some away because he was under pressure. But I think overall, Derek, I look at this and I say, if you seriously look at this game, if you watch this game from start to finish, and you say Anthony Richardson was the problem in this game, you are revealing to everyone that you're a casual, that you didn't clearly watch this game and watch Anthony Richardson throw how many passes, 20-plus yards down the field, they got called back for stupid penalties or dropped touchdowns. It's unbelievable. And, Derek, we knew this kid still has time. We knew he was going to need time to grow. We know that. He still has issues. Just because he's locked in more now doesn't mean he's not going to have some of those issues still. But still, Derek, when you looked at that, I looked at that especially in that first half, and I said, man, this is insane. How many times big plays are being wiped off the board? And I think you saw it, Derek. You couldn't run the ball. Your offensive line was horrible.
You couldn't run the ball unless it was Anthony Richardson on a design run.
Yeah. And every time you would make a big play, it would get negated by something stupid that you did.
Yep.
I mean, like you said, Derek, Anthony Richardson in this game, I just want to pull it up. He had 172 yards passing. I think, Derek, he probably has near what he had a week ago if his receivers could act, or his tight ends could catch the ball, and his offensive line could protect him, and also would not commit stupid penalties. Like, think about that. How many 20-plus yard passes? I can imagine, Derek, I can't even imagine how many of those, if he had 10 penalties, I mean, how many of those were negated and called back? And if you add those all together, that's well over 100 more passing yards than Anthony Richardson has in this game. And his completion percentage looks a heck of a lot better in this game. And so, like, there's all those things. And people will go and say, look at the completion percentage and all that stuff. And I know we've been clamoring for weeks and weeks about that. It's like he can't make his tight ends catch the ball. He can't make his offensive line not hold on third down. He can't make his whatever you want to throw in there. It is a team game. And if part of your units are not working, if your other parts of your offense are not living up to the standard, it's impossible. I don't care, like you said, if you're the best quarterback in the NFL. If your team is literally sabotaging you every time you have a big play, there's nothing that you can do. There is just nothing you can do. And he had no running game in this game.
Yep.
The offensive line was consistently getting him under duress, and he still completed a few passes under duress. The Lions were sending multiple guys every single play. I mean, it was just
crazy too, Cody, because he got sacked 0 times in this game,
which is nuts.
It's nuts for the amount of pressure he faced today.
Joe Flacco would have been sacked like 8 times, if not more, in this game.
Literally,
like legitimately.
I mean, it's just exact, and it's funny because I'm looking at Twitter as this is happening, and it's like the literal 3 or 4 tweets right after is literally saying like Ogletree drop on the goal line slant is why you got to watch Richardson play instead of just looking at the box score. And then like 7 straight incompletions when Ashton Doolin can't keep his feet in bounds. It's like everyone's starting to understand it. Like, this kid is not that far off. It's just the fact that his weapons continue to fail him and his offensive line. I get it. The offensive line, they're rookies. They're all rookies. You know what? I don't even blame Dalton Tucker. He's a rookie. He's an undrafted free agent. He shouldn't be in this position. You know what? We should blame Cody. We should blame Quentin Nelson. Because, again, Quentin Nelson didn't live up to the standard today either. He was terrible. Quentin Nelson, just like all the rest of them, were terrible. And Quentin Nelson is your all-pro, elite of the elite offensive lineman. And he had his worst game yet as a starter. And you can't make this stuff up. Like, this team just sabotages this kid at so many different turns. I'm not trying to absolve the fact that Anthony Richardson has a few throws per game where I'm like, dude, no, just don't do that. But like, that wasn't the biggest problem. Again, if you count the fact that, like I said, 7 or 8 different plays here, guys, that Anthony Richardson would have had, he would have been 18 for 30 for 300 yards and probably 2 touchdowns, maybe 3. But we're not talking about that because we're talking about his inaccuracies, but we're not talking about the fact that his teammates continue to fail him.
Mm-hmm. Routinely. It's been that way the whole season, Derek. And again, we know, Derek, I will say this till I'm blue in the face. We know he has work to do. And we're not absolving him of saying he needs to be better because he does. But this game, I think, is the pinnacle of what we have been saying. You cannot do everything yourself in an 11-on-11 type of game. You just can't. Because you can be doing your job all day long. But like I said, you cannot make your other teammates do their jobs. If they're not doing their jobs, ultimately, the blame's going to come back on you. However you think about that, I mean, obviously it's not fair. That's kind of part of it. But again, if you watch this game with your 2 eyes, you clearly see there are far more issues with this offense than the quarterback. There are far, far more issues, starting with the offensive line and the tight ends. Again, the offensive line down multiple starters in this game. There were some starters that played very poorly that need to be called out. Quentin Nelson, Braden Smith, both need to be called out in this game. But yeah, you are so young at offensive line right now. Your tight ends literally cannot catch. And they don't do it. I don't know what they do. Honestly, Derek, I don't know what they do. It's a problem. It really is a problem. And it's just unfortunate because that just kills your momentum when stupid plays like that happen. And it's a big reason why, Derek, I went and talked about it before. We look at the time of possession, you are completely out, just destroyed in that department. Again, because you couldn't stay on the field because every time you would convert, you do something stupid and get a penalty and it'd be back at 3rd and 20 plus.
Yeah. And I think a lot of what people need to understand too, just like a reference to like how good Anthony Richardson actually was in spite of the numbers. If you actually trust PFF grades, which again, some people say they don't, but that's what almost every single person that covers this sport uses. During the live game, till the very end of the fourth quarter, Anthony Richardson was right at around an 80 for a PFF grade, which, I mean, again, the box score will not tell you that, but that PFF grade tells you is that maybe the reason why the box score looks the way it does may not be Anthony Richardson's fault. Maybe that's why. And that's exactly what we're telling you, is that his numbers would not have looked this bad if his team would have played better. And, I hate beating a broken horse. I really wish that this team was better right now. I really do. I want this team to just be able to catch the ball. I want him to be able to have a tight end that actually can make plays and catch the ball. And when he throws a touchdown pass to somebody, that they don't just drop it every time. Like, obviously, he missed the one to Alec Pierce, but I was telling Cody during the broadcast, like, he couldn't make that throw because as he was delivering it, he was getting hit. He couldn't step into that throw and make that play. So no wonder it was just a little bit off because he wasn't given that extra half second to be able to do the mechanics that he's been working on so hard to be able to get done. Because Cody, you and I watched that game too. When he had time to sit back and be able to launch that thing with his feet the way that we want it, it was pretty dead on accurate. It pretty much was the majority of the game. So we can't sit here and say, oh, he's just not ever accurate. It's becoming an issue of his offensive line is just not giving him the time to be accurate. That's the issue.
Well, here's what I say, Derek. I said it, I think around halftime of this game. I said, everybody will have an opinion. Everybody will, of course. There will be people who will be called so-called experts that will say they know what's going on. There will be people even in this comment section that think that we're idiots. But I know what my two eyes are telling me. And Derek, I know what you and I have said is our biggest thing for this season. It's the development of your young quarterback, Anthony Richardson. That's what we said. That's ultimately what matters in this game and in this season. Derek, in the last 2 weeks, I have seen Anthony Richardson look more comfortable in the pocket, more poised as a passer, and just more confident and locked in than I ever have seen. I have seen him grow and develop in the last 2 weeks, even though the numbers won't always necessarily back it up. Because again, context, and people don't like to do that. They just like to look at the stats and say, this guy's trash, which if you're doing that, you're an idiot. I mean, to be plain and simple. But when I look at it, I say, look, this kid is young. He's learning. He has to grow, and that's what we needed to say. Like, we need to see him develop as a player and as a passer. We have seen that the last 2 weeks. He has grown as a quarterback throwing the football, which standing from the pocket, delivering, putting touch on the ball. Derek, AR was spot on today on some of these passes, and even a lot of the ones that were negated. I mean, you look at that touch to Alec Pierce. I mean, that's phenomenal down the field. You look at the one that was to Doolin, even though he didn't catch it, that was right on the money. That wasn't AR's fault. That was Doolin's fault. He didn't put both feet in. And there were so many other great touches on the ball that, Derek, at the beginning of the season, I don't think AR's making that throw. I don't think he's making that throw because I think that's the big thing. He's developing. He's growing. And to me, Derek, we didn't think the Colts were going to win this game. But the fact that it's not just been a one-off thing, it's now 2 straight weeks where I think AR, from a poise standpoint, an accuracy standpoint, not what the numbers tell you, but what from we see it with our 2 eyes in the games, he has been so much better. So much better. His touch has been better. His poise in the pocket has been better. His confidence as a passer has been better. And to me, Derek, I don't care what other people say. That's what matters to me, and that's why I'm excited for him. And I believe if he continues on this trajectory, he is going to be the guy at quarterback. I just believe it. If he can stay healthy, he's going to be the guy because he has shown that improvement. Enough improvement in already just 2 weeks to make me confident that he still has a long way to go, but he now has that right mindset, and he's shown that when now he's started to really lock in, he can do it. He can be a good passer in the NFL. He can. I mean, that was the biggest question mark, right? It's like we knew he was a tremendous athlete, but can he be a guy that when it matters the most, he can stand and deliver in the pocket? Yeah, he's not anywhere near where he needs to be. But Derek, he has shown you for 2 straight weeks that he can do it. And that's good enough for me. That's good enough for me. I didn't expect AR to come out and look like an MVP. I didn't expect that, this year. But the growth for me in the last 2 weeks, after all the crap that happened with him getting benched, for me, Derek, I look at it and I say, my 2 eyes are telling me this young kid's growing, and that's exciting for me. That's exciting for me. This team might not be good. I don't think this team is good. I'll be honest. But I think you can separate the fact this team isn't good, but this young quarterback is growing, and he's looking a lot better than he's looked. And I can chalk that up and say, that's a win to me. That's a win to me. And that's what ultimately matters. So, again, these games are frustrating. But, Derek, if this young quarterback keeps developing, he's only going to continue to get better. I mean, he's only scratched the surface on what he can truly become. So, that's what I look at. In his first full season, as a starter, really, he's shown improvement. Enough for me, and I think others as well who are listening to this, to say he can be the franchise. We didn't know that 3 weeks ago.
Yes.
But I'm truly seeing that development. And people love the whole term of development, but when you start seeing it, some people just don't get it. They just don't get it. They'll look at the pure stats. They'll look at some of the stuff that the media is feeding them. National media, because I think that the local media gets it.
Yeah, the local media seems to get it. My issue is we're never going to get the full story on Anthony Richardson if you're going to continue to have weapons that continue to fail you time and time again, and an offensive line that fails you time and time again. That's the problem. And I've been saying it forever. I know that earlier this year, Anthony Richardson's accuracy was compromised. I agree.
Absolutely.
But that still doesn't change the fact that, once again, I was telling people that when Anthony Richardson did put the ball on the money, his weapons were still failing him, regardless of whether or not that completion percentage was bad. This is the exact same issue here, was the fact that the weapons and the team around him did not make his job any easier. They made his stat chart look way worse than what it is, and you have to actually watch the film and actually watch the games to actually get that and understand that. So I hate the fact that we have spent literally 25 minutes having to defend this kid once again, because that's the problem that we're going to have here, is we're going to have this situation. We've already made our mention on the defense. Again, they had their own problems. Yes, they were not very good. But then again, they did enough to give you a chance to win the game. I mean, that's the problem here, was that, and I got to wonder, Cody, again, when you have this sort of situation where you have 10 penalties offensively, or at least 8 offensively, I don't know. But who's going to take the fault for this? Who's going to accept the accountability of this? Is it Steichen? Is it Ballard? I don't know. Tell me, how can you have such an undisciplined team? Like, I get you have injuries on the offensive front, but that wasn't the huge issue. That wasn't the only issue. Your best offensive lineman was having his worst day as a Colt on this game as well. Like, who is going to figure this out, and who is going to take accountability for why this team continues to self-inflict itself with these wounds and drain the blood out of this team so fast?
I don't know, man. I think it has to come back to the head coach because, again, he's the one out there working with these guys, you know? I mean, it's his baby. Like, it's his, like, he's commanding this offense. He's calling plays. He's scheming up. He's doing all this stuff. So, again, like, as much as and I think Ballard has a part to play in this as well. I mean, don't get me wrong. But again, Derek, it's like, I look at it and I say, you had plenty of opportunities today. It's not like your offense was completely inept today, like when it came to yardage standpoint. Like you take away some of those flags, and like you said, you have almost more like you said, like 400 yards of offense if you negate all that crap. But again, it's the self-inflicted stuff, and to me, that always comes back to coaching. It's like if you're continuing to shoot yourself in the own foot and not fixing it, then that's a coach problem to me. But again, I don't think it's just like specifically the coach. I think the GM definitely has something here. I would have liked to see the Colts address it in some way, like a little bit more in terms of, maybe a veteran or two in the interior. But again, Derek, that's what happens when you're playing three rookies on your offensive line, right? Again, nobody could predict Will Fries going out for the year. Nobody could predict Bernhard Raimann missing multiple games, which I don't even think that was the issue in this game.
Yeah, I don't think the left tackle was the issue. I mean, outside of Braden Smith one time having that hold on McKinley, who is – hold on, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure this out real quick because there's one guy in particular. I can't remember who it is. It's McNeil. Aleem McNeil. That dude, he had one tackle today, Cody, which is unbelievably funny to say the least. That dude single-handedly wrecked this offensive line. Single-handedly wrecked them. Yes, he did not get a sack, but it felt like every drive, Cody, he had a pressure or forced an Indianapolis Colts player to commit a penalty. Every single drive. Literally, I felt like that was the one guy that was like just ruining our whole day. Me personally.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, the interior was brutal today, especially the guards, man. It was so bad from both guards. Yeah, like I said, I think you need to have a right guard conversation because clearly Dalton Tucker's not getting it done. Derek, he has had 2 weeks of being, I mean, when I say god-awful, I don't even think it's like giving it justice. Like, he is giving me some serious, like, Andrew Luck, offensive guard play. That's what he's giving me right now. I mean, he's giving me Mike McGlynn vibes, if you remember that name. Like, just somebody who clearly can't block and just is so overwhelmed. It's bad. It's just really bad. I mean, I just don't know what else to say. And again, you said it, Derek. He shouldn't be put in that position. He just shouldn't be. I mean, you should have had some sort of plan, whether it's Danny Pinter, whether it's, Mark Glowinski. I don't know. It's clear you need to have a conversation about that because it's bad. It's really bad. And it's been bad for 2 weeks. So if we're going to be about accountability, then you need to make some changes at right guard. That, just to put it simple.
It is what it is, man. But
yeah,
that's going to do it for this one, Colts fans. Again, it's not the fact that the Indianapolis Colts lost. It's just a matter of how they lost. I think it was very disappointing to know that the Indianapolis Colts faced a really good defense last week in the New York Jets and were able to figure it out offensively. And then this week, you faced a defense that was maybe on the same level, maybe a little worse. And yet you still found a way to make them look like Imperial Giants, which, is hard to deal with. But that's going to do it for this one, guys. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. But that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, go Colts.